and Game 4, two big differences were Game 3, we didn't have a lot of the Celtics didn't have a lot of production coming from the bench. Game 4, Celtics had a lot of production coming from the bench, and then in Game 3, the only player that really stepped out was KG, and Ray Allen was non-effective. Only 3 points that game. Even get some more points than that, and it helps the team more. And foul trouble was a big thing, even for the Lakers a little bit in Game 3. But we weren't getting our free throws. But Game 4, the refs let it play physically. I think the Celtics should really try and adjust themselves to each to how the refs are going to let them play. And you could really tell that the Lakers really fed off of the refs being more whistle happy throughout the game.
Yeah. And well, I want to go back to your point for a minute when you just said that you think Perkins is more valuable than Rasheed and that you'd rather Rasheed get suspended for a game. I kind of disagree with you there because if you saw the fourth quarter over the last 2 games, Perkins hasn't played at all. It's been Glenn Davis and Rasheed Wallace who have been in there at the end of the game. I think those are the 2 vital guys off the bench. And if you lose Perkins for a game, I think those 2 guys can really make up for him because he has had a very small impact in this series.
Certainly, valid arguments, you would say. But at the same time, I think when you're talking about the defensive end, Perkins he's always been the guy who's been the most physical. He makes the dirty plays, as we would say in hockey. He makes the dirty plays. He makes the physical plays. He's the guy who can take up all that space for you. KG's not the same player he was anymore with the knee, so he can't be as physical in the paint or defensively than he used to be. KG, have you ever seen Rasheed like that this season? Watching Rasheed play, he doesn't do that. He's a good post defender, but he's not physical. He's not willing to, clear the space for the rebound. He can't do that. So all I'm going to say, I think Rasheed is important. Don't get me wrong. I want both to stay in the game.
Yeah.
But if there was one that had to be suspended, I would say Sheed. I think defense is more important than the offense. So if you're talking about offense, then definitely Sheed you want to keep.
I think it really depends between 2 factors. The refs, because if the refs are more whistle happy, Rasheed would be more fit to play than Perkins, because Perkins is going to be more physical in the paint. And also how the starters score points, especially the big 3 and big 4 with Rajon Rondo, how they put up points also, because if they're not putting up points, we really need an offense in that fourth quarter. We need that bench to make our offense, and that's what Rasheed can really give us at some point, give the Celtics at some points. But with Perkins, if we're up and we have a big game, Perkins can be more valuable in those type of games. It really depends how the Celtics are doing overall and how the other players are playing and how the other factors which are going on.
Right.
Any last comments about that?
I will say this for the Lakers side of the view. If Lamar Odom, who's been quiet in this series, I think he only had 6 points. For most of this series, he's only had 6 or 7 points, 8 points, throughout each game. That's got to change. The Lakers need him to start producing. He's a guy who can get you 20 and 10, not every night out, but certainly many nights. And with Bynum being limited, he has to be physical in the paint. He has to be getting those rebounds like Bynum could. Otherwise, I think the Lakers are in huge trouble.
I don't feel that Bynum's going to step up that much. He hasn't played well this series, and I don't see any reason why he would. I think he does. Odom, I think you're completely right that they all have to step up, but I don't think Bynum's going to have a huge impact. I don't think Odom's going to have a huge impact. And I think their only big man who's going to have a big impact is Pau Gasol, and that's why I think the Celtics are going to win tonight.
All right.
Definitely, I agree with that because Lamar Odom, he's been non-existent throughout the whole series, and he's had his chances to step up almost every game 3 and 4. All the Sports Center guys, everybody was saying, Lamar Odom needs to step up. He's the key player. If he can step up, still hasn't stepped up. Still hasn't come up to the plate for the Lakers. I still think he's going to be non-existent. Andrew Bynum, I feel that he could be a threat in Game 6, especially Game 6, and if it ends up going to Game 7. I think the Lakers are going to be more cautious with him tonight and keep him more for a safety if they need him. Be more careful with him and make sure they can have him for Game 6 if they need him to win a championship, or which we don't hope, or keep them in the running so the Celtics don't win a championship. How do you feel about the Lakers using Bynum?
Well, I think you talk about a kid who's 22 and is 7 foot, 1. He's a guy. He's very valuable to them, not for now, but for the future. And I think that the Lakers are right when they say they have to preserve him. They don't want him to use up too many minutes with his kind of body when he's always unhealthy. You don't want to force him. You don't want to push him at age 22.
Yeah.
That can ruin a guy's career. This guy is going to be one of the best centers in the league for many years to come. Many years to come.
Well, he had just had his knee drained,
Right.
which should again, which he says it feels better now and it should help him, but I'm not buying it. I still think he's unhealthy, and even if he had his knee drained and his knee's feeling better, he's not 100% healthy, and he needs to be 100% for the Lakers to win.
Exactly. And by the way, I would say look for Ron Artest, who has been offensively just been a total ghost. He's just been non-existent. Look for him to have a big game, and look for Ray Allen to rebound, because he's been awful over games 3 and 4. He really is out there to prove something tonight. So,
especially after that big game 2, he really hasn't
Exactly.
been there for the Celtics. Now, containing Kobe has been something the
can't
Celtics
contain him. You just can't contain him.
That's actually what I was saying. Is most people have said is you have to focus on the people around Kobe, because
Right.
if you contain the people around Kobe, he just gets his 22 points, and I feel that's what the Celtics did with Dwayne Wade and what the Celtics did with LeBron James. Let the stars score the points, but if you contain the cast around them, I feel that the Celtics are built a perfectly built team that way. They have 4 players that could easily become stars for each game and take turns rotating in. And what do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like the only way to really shut down Kobe Bryant, you can't really shut him down, but the most way to shut him down is to use Tony Allen, who in my opinion is the best perimeter defender on the Celtics. Now, if you bring him in, Paul Pierce and Ray Allen have to sit, and that's not good for the Celtics. But when they're resting, when they're not in the game, they can refuel, get some energy back to go on the offensive end, and Tony Allen can come in on defense and guard Kobe Bryant, who's been his equal this series on defense, and he's really been the only player on the Celtics who's been able to contain him as much as he possibly can.